Welcome to the Cincy Postcast. I'm Kevin Wallace, and before we get into today's episode, I want to tell you about our friends over at Streetside Brewery. Oh, one of my favorite Cincinnati brewery. They are awesome. I can tell you, just this past weekend, watched the FC Cincinnati match, drinking an English mild beer. It felt appropriate watching soccer. Great stuff. Just great stuff from Streetside there. Check them out at 4003 Eastern Avenue over on the east side of Cincinnati. And hey, this weekend, September 28th, it is Streetside's 8th anniversary. Now, I understand this is an FC Cincinnati match day. However, before the game, they will have a good party going. And you've heard them on this podcast. If you've heard this podcast, you've heard them before. Absolutely love them. Jim Trace and the Makers will be playing from 3 to 6 p.m. on Saturday. Go out there, support JTM, support Streetside before the match, and then head on over to your pregame bar of choice. But definitely check out Streetside this weekend. You can also watch plenty of Premier League action early in the morning, and they have Bengals watch parties there as well. Really great time. Absolutely love Streetside. Hey, while you are there, mention the Cincy Postcast. Mention us. Tell them we sent you, and they will knock $1 off of your beer on your tab. Really great people. So huge thank you to Streetside for supporting this episode and many others. And thank you, listener, for going to Streetside and supporting them. Today's episode is a really good one. Look, we go all over the place in part one. We are talking about the good old days of FC Cincinnati in the USL era. We are talking about the coaching searches around the league, not including FC Cincinnati assistant coaches. Should we be excited or offended on that one? And we also discuss what would an MLS TV network look like? And shouldn't one already exist? And then in part two, it is all Patreon questions, listener questions. You guys asked some really good ones. My favorite one is where we build a starting 11 out of things that probably couldn't actually take the field. And then in part three, we finally get to it, the LAFC preview this weekend. It is a huge matchup for these teams. You put it all together, you got one hell of a postcast. Joining me to talk about all of that and more, I'm joined by the one and only Chief. Chief, how are we doing tonight?
Doing good. Feels like it's becoming less and less that we can get the three of us together on the same schedule for this podcast. I don't know what that suggests, or I don't know what that says, but happy to be here on this Wednesday night where absolutely nothing is going on with the FC right now.
We were talking just before we hit record. There's probably more news and interest around the club during December and January than there is today.
Right.
Just today. Obviously, we're in the midst of the season and the playoffs are quickly approaching, but it feels like we're kind of sort of locked into a 2 or 3 seed. Everybody's healthy.
We're kind of psyching ourselves up a little bit for the playoffs. We know it's coming. We all opted in.
Yeah, right.
Some of us opted in. All of us did. I opted in. I made the choice. I'm going to be there to support the lads when it comes to playoff soccer. But yeah, it just feels like everybody is sort of, we know the playoffs are right around the corner, and there's just not a lot of news happening right now because we're all just sort of waiting for the inevitable to start on this.
Yeah. And no news generally is good news.
Right.
We do have a couple of things to touch on here. I will say here, how about this? In a no news is good news, there are a couple of coaching vacancies around the league, and right about now we're starting to get some whispers and rumors of names floating around. But again, no news is good news. I've not seen a lot of FC Cincinnati coaches being linked to these jobs, which, yay, as an FC Cincinnati fan. I don't know, Kenny Arena's probably due for a head coaching gig at some point, but as a selfish FCC fan, happy to see him sticking around, happy to see Dom Kinnear sticking around, Paez sticking around, but I don't know. What do you make of it?
That's tough. No, you always do feel selfish in that regard when your coaching staff stays together, because it is annoying when good teams, and this is way more of an NFL thing than any other sport, where the minute your team gets good, your coaching staff gets raided, and it's like, oh, now you have to reload your defensive coordinator, your offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
I guess you feel good for the players getting that opportunity, and you talk about coaching trees, I guess. And I guess now there would be something of a Jim Curtin coaching tree where, he bequeathed the world Pat Noonan, and now Noonan hopefully will have people that come out from underneath him and fly on spread their own wings and fly. But it is nice for that continuity. It is nice to have the same group of people there. That is nice to have known faces, known systems. I don't know. Kenny seems like a good guy. I hope he gets a gig at some point. Just maybe not until after we've won a cup.
Yeah, selfishly, that'd be nice.
Selfishly, until after we've won a cup, we've got a star over the badge. Then he can go on to bigger and better things for his life. Yeah,
that seems fair.
Is it weird? Is it weird though that like he's not getting a sniff? I feel
like not even a name being mentioned of like, ooh, San Jose is looking at these 8 names, and he could be on a short list of people to eventually interview. I don't know. It's just weird that like his name isn't coming up at all. It is funny, and like as a UC Bearcat football fan, I'm definitely used to this space of like, hey, whoa, Brian Kelly is good enough to get an interview, and then you go, whoa, I don't want him to leave.
He does seem to check a lot of boxes, though, that you would think that his name would come up more often. He's coached in MLS for quite some time. Yeah. UVA guy, so he's tied into that mafia. Dad is probably the greatest American soccer coach of all time. Part of a coaching staff that turned around the worst franchise in MLS. I mean, how many boxes do you need to check in order to get an interview in this league?
It is very weird. And I could maybe understand if there's like a weird, like Bruce Arena is being blackballed from the league, which again, I don't like agree with until somebody can say
Bruce
publicly.
Is interviewing. He's interviewing for the San Diego gig.
But he's out there. So like if that's not a thing, then Kenny definitely shouldn't be getting jobs. I don't know. It's a very, very odd situation. But like I said, if we can keep the whole gang together, run it back next year, I don't hate it. I don't hate where this team is set up for in the near future.
Yeah. I do wonder to a certain extent how much you need to have a GM that's in your corner. Like, would Pat Noonan be the head coach of FC Cincinnati if Chris Albright wasn't the general manager here? He needed someone who came from the Phillies system that was like, yep, I'm going to give him his shot.
Yeah.
And for example, if Gerard Nijkamp had been given the opportunity to hire another manager after firing Jaap Stam, or after Jaap Stam was fired, I don't think Pat Noonan would have been high on his list, because you've got to have somebody that's in the room where it happens that's advocating for you. And I feel bad. I wonder who that is for Kenny Arena, almost needs to be something where Pat gets, and I don't want this to happen, Pat gets poached by someone over in Europe or someplace else, and then he gets the opportunity because he has that pre-existing relationship with Chris Albright. It shouldn't work that way, but in sports, it feels like it often does.
Yeah. It seems like where it's headed. It is funny that like all of the names we're seeing floating around there are like names. And I do wonder if the greatest job in the entire world is rearing its head again, which is the front office consulting team that comes in and says, hey, thanks for the $1 million. What about Greg Berhalter?
Right. Look, you pay us to find the best people. We found you the best people. Have you ever heard of Greg Berhalter?
Right. Have you ever heard of Bruce Arena?
How about Bob Bradley? Have you heard of him? It's like, wait, are you just giving me the names of people that used to manage the national team?
Right.
No.
San Diego did that, so a little bit, yeah. The latest one,
it's annoying because like those people feel like they're stealing their money, and also there are so many good young coaches. And I in hindsight, aren't you so glad that FC Cincinnati took the risk to bring in Pat Noonan as opposed to going for some retread? And look, I know Bruce Arena already had a job, and would I have liked to have had Bruce Arena as the head coach of FC Cincinnati? Sure. Yeah. But I'm not disappointed that they gave Pat Noonan an opportunity and that he's taken this and run with it. And it's hard to imagine anyone else managing this team right now. And it's hard to imagine anyone else doing this turnaround that Noonan and his coaching staff have done. And it just, you got to give some people some chances every so often. You can't just keep going back to the well over and over again. And on like a meta level, the sport in this country needs more people to be given chances. They need more Americans to be given chances. I know that's a dirty word to say, oh, we're hiring an American head coach, but we're never going to grow in this country as a soccer playing nation if we can't also grow in terms of the managers that we're churning out too.
Yeah. Yeah. And, hopefully we see more of that. And I would love to see a Cincinnati coaching tree sort of develop from here as well, or at least a healthy branch of whatever tree Curtin and Noonan are going to get credit for coming from. So, yeah. So I like it. The latest one I did see, though, was Patrick Vieira to Atlanta United, which, if that's the case, great. I don't. Cool. that doesn't interest me. So that's cool.
They're a funny case, Atlanta. Yeah. They came into this league hotter than a firecracker, and they were on a parallel path with LAFC. And when both those teams came in, you would have been forgiven for thinking that this is the new East-West rivalry in MLS. These teams are going to be trading the cup and the shield back and forth. Atlanta was selling 60, 70,000 tickets down there in the Mercedes-Benz Butthole Dome. And just what's gone wrong down there? That feels like an enormous bag fumble that they took what they had there and the momentum and the fan support. And it just feels like it's been squandered.
One thing, like Carlos Bocanegra is a pretty easy one to point to as like being a weird egomaniac down there. They did a good job with Lagerwey, but I got to tell you, was it before the Monday Night Football game with the Falcons in week 2 of the NFL? I think that's right. Arthur Blank, the owner of Atlanta United and the Falcons, inducted himself into the Falcons Ring of Honor.
Hey, they gave everyone free hot dogs and sodas when like cups with Arthur Blank's picture on it. That's like, what a flex move to be like, I'm inducting myself into the Ring of Honor and y'all are going to have drinks with my picture on it when you're walking around the stadium.
I don't think I'm exaggerating. Their fans have done at least 3 tifos with Arthur Blank on the tifo.
He's a weird looking dude too.
He's a weird looking dude, but I point right there at ownership, man. That's a weird dude. Those are weird instincts from a guy. I don't know.
You would think Arthur Blank is the butler for Arthur Blank, just the way he looks. He has butler energy.
Yes. I love too in Atlanta, obviously very wealthy gentleman there, and family.
Home Depot, I think, was his whole thing.
Yeah, founded it or something along those lines. And but everything down there, just like you go around Cincinnati, it's the Lindner Center this, the Lindner that, the Lindner this. It's the blank center, the blank this, and it's just really funny to read it out loud. Oh, you want to go to the blank center? Oh, the what center?
The blank,
the blank center.
Fill in the blank here. Do you think it bothers him that the movie Blank Man, it stars Damon Wayans?
100%.
One of the worst 90s, and I say worst in the best, most forgiving light. It's an incredible Blank Man is an incredible movie, but he will never be able to be his own superhero because it was already taken by Damon Wayans. That's a movie we will never do on the Film Room, is Blank Man.
Damn.
No, they had Joseph Martinez. He was incredible. And then did it all go wrong when they signed what was it, Petey Martinez?
It really was PD.
Who we were rumored for, I think, for a while, right? For like a hot minute there, a day.
Yeah, there was one day where it was like Lucho, PD, and somebody else all at the same time. I was like, oh my God, what is happening with this team right now?
Right.
That was
that was Brenner. Day. Wasn't it Brenner and PD Martinez? Weren't they the same time?
It might have been Brenner.
No, it was Lucho. It was Lucho, I think.
It might have been all three, though. It was crazy.
It's a wild time. That's like that whole era of FC Cincinnati has just been compressed into like one big ball of bad. I've like, there is no distinction between 2019, 2020, and 2021. Yeah. If you ask me what year Kamahilo Makocho played for this team, the answer is all of them. I don't remember. They're like a time compression thing where all these players were sort of, and like you go back and you watch look at the rosters from that time period. They were wild. That's, when was Kenny Safe there? Yeah, in the bad part, like somewhere in there.
Somewhere in the bad part. I'm pretty sure Kenneth Vermeer was still on our roster last year. So, yeah. Things are weird. Was it last year? Or maybe it was the year before.
2022. Know. It was definitely 2022. He was on the roster.
Who knows?
It's part of the bad. We don't pay attention to the bad. Just the bad exists. And we have compressed the bad and put it into a part of our brain that we just don't think about anymore, other than to laugh at things that happened during the bad.
Yes.
And if you laugh at it, he's like, what year did that happen? Don't know. It was in the bad.
In the bad. I think right now there's an argument for this being the good, but I will say I have a sweet spot, or a soft spot, I should say. Sweet spot? I'm not eating this. A soft spot for the good old days of the USL era of a team that was a winning franchise. And I think that's what people miss out on when they try to figure out, like, why did the Cincinnati fan base stick around with a bad MLS team? It's because they were born and bred as a good USL team. And I think a big part of that is, and we've talked about it before, about how this was a team and a franchise that on the field and in the stands presented itself as a major league franchise. And I mean that in the most generic sense possible. They presented themselves as if they were equal to the Reds and the Bengals and to a lesser extent the Bearcats being at Nipper. But a big part of that was what was also going on off of the field. And I can tell you the moment I was truly bought into FC Cincinnati, I was about to take a shower. I load up a podcast. God, I like to listen to a podcast in the shower. I'm a weird guy. And I had gotten word that there was an FC Cincinnati podcast. And I was like, oh, God, how bad is this thing going to be? Booted it up. And I got to tell you, I was immediately blown away by the quality of production, the quality of the show that was happening for a lower division, brand new, not even kick-to-ball soccer team. And so much of the credit, I think, of the USL years goes to Cincinnati Soccer Talk, and in particular one, Brian Weigel. That was a long way to get to this point here. Chief, one of our own in the podcasting space, in the content creation space, in the FCC OG space. Yeah. He's hanging them ups. How do we feel about this?
Another one bites the dust. This is how the Post wins right here. So we eventually we just have to wait out the opposition. One by
Boston to quit
one.
Next.
One by one. We're still here. The number one ability is availability. It's
it's not good what we do, but we will just keep doing it.
No, we're going to be the last one doing it for damn sure. Be us and cockroaches, the only things surviving the nuclear holocaust. Yeah, this sucks. Well, it don't suck. I mean, I'm happy that he's getting out, because the only thing, it's like the old thing about owning a boat. What are the two best days of owning a boat? Is the day you buy it and the day you sell it. The two best days of doing a podcast are the day you start it and the day you quit, I think. The CST is interesting, and it's hard to use the old cliche. It's hard to tell the story of the FC Cincinnati fan community without CST.
Yeah.
And without, the Weigels, without Suberling, without the guys were the original crew, Boston, the original crew of CST.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's sort of emblematic of the growth of FC Cincinnati that a lot of things happened very quickly for this team where they didn't wait around for a big audience to come to them. The first game, big crowd. Second game, bigger crowd. But they didn't have to wait years or months to find supporters groups. They were there on day one. They didn't have to wait months to find, fan generated news content beyond just the media. And the media got wise to FC Cincinnati real quick. The Inquirer was there on almost day one. The local TVs were there on day one. But it's still Cincy Soccer Talk really filled a void for all of us that were news starved for this team. And there's only so many column inches they'll give to the team in the Inquirer, and CST kind of filled the void in between those. You had the podcast, you had the website. They sent people to training in the springtime before the season started so that you could get like updates on a minor league team, a D3 team. They were covering spring training for the D3 team. And the podcast in particular, it drove narratives in the fan base, but in a good way. It offered a platform for what was a pretty insular supporters movement to broaden its reach and educate the fans a little bit about what it was they did and the benefits of joining and the benefits of growing it out. I don't think the Bailey culture would be what it is right now. I know it wouldn't, speaking as someone that was very involved in those early days. I don't think it would be what it was if we didn't have a bunch of really dedicated people spending their time and, dedicating themselves to building that brand and that content group with CST. So hats off to them, man. Like, this is really cool that we got to sort of live in this era of FC media. Yeah. And Chief, too, I think this is something that you will definitely sort of resonate with, is seeing the OGs step away from CST. Not all of them, but to see them step away. But CST is still going and still going strong and still has contributors is like a really cool moment to be able to not just start something and make something grow, but I think it's really like that pivotal moment when the leadership changes hands and you find somebody that you're comfortable with leaving it with somebody else. I think that's a really, really cool moment. Something that we've seen with supporters groups, and now Brian gets to see with CST. And man, think about how many. Yeah, that's an interesting thought, actually. Yeah. So on a meta level, I guess, and this is the kind of content you get from the postcast when there's no real FC Cincinnati news on a midweek episode. It is interesting that this club is going to be coming up on its 10th anniversary next year. It was founded in 2015. First season, I think, was 2016, right? I got my math and my maths correctly. They kicked the ball in 2016, but the club was legally founded, I think, in August of 2015. So they're coming up on a 10-year anniversary. And there's a culture around this club, not just on the field, but off the field. And that encompasses a lot of different things about soccer. Is weird. Soccer is as much a cultural thing as it is a sporting event. It's a cultural event. There's so much around the world of culture and just like the team has an identity and the fan base has an identity and there's a culture that surrounds the club. And it's a little different than it is just about anywhere else in any other sport. Yeah. And part of that is it's still a little bit, you refer to it as a pirate code among supporters. Yeah. There is a sort of pirate ethos to what soccer does. It's trying to be incredibly corporate and button up when it comes to the way MLS runs things. And, the Premier League is corporate and buttoned up. All these leagues are corporate and buttoned up. But there's always soccer, and soccer fandom pushes back against that. It's like the fat on the neck pushing back against that top button to keep the tie on. And that's what fandom is. Fandom is the neck fat is what I've always said fandom is neck fat. Neck fat. Yeah, no, it's a flattering portrayal of the fan base. But it makes perfect sense. I know exactly what you're talking about. But in places where soccer works in this country, I think that there has to be a culture that goes around with it. There has to be something where why do you go to a Portland Timbers game? Why do you go to a Seattle Sounders game? Well, because there's a vibe to it that you can only describe as it's that. FC Cincinnati, you ask a casual person who buys tickets whenever they, hey, let's go down to see the FC play. Why are you going? Oh, man, it's a party. It's a vibe. And what creates that, I think, is the neck fat there.
Mm-hmm.
And we're sort of reaching an inflection point with the club. And I know I'm meandering and I'm rambling as I try to. We're reaching a point with the club and with the fan base where it's going to start transitioning from the people who were there on the ground floor.
Yeah.
At the club's front office, you're talking people. Some people are never going anywhere. I don't think Jeff Birding is going anywhere anytime soon. He's got points in the actual club itself.
Yeah.
You got guys like Dan McNally, massive respect to him. Jeff Smith, same, OGs. But that number is getting fewer and fewer, and that's just natural. People move on to different jobs. People do different things. They look for new opportunities. The ethos of the club is carried with it in the people that work there, and the fan base is the same way.
Yeah,
you're going to see people like the Weigels moving on, Brian Weigel moving on. You're going to see people that are fixtures in supporters groups move on. You're going to see people that are fixtures, drumming the drums, painting the tifos, they move on. And that first switchover it's dangerous for the fan base. It's dangerous for the movement. You've got to make sure that the flame stays lit and that there is that same kind of almost startup against the world spirit that got the club to where it is, and that it stays fun, that it stays rowdy, but responsibly so, that it stays focused on the right things, focused on growing the game, growing the product, up in the team, creating the environment that makes people want to go places. And at the club, it's the same thing. It's got to be the same environment, and the same type of people that want to allow the neck fat to push back a little bit. That is okay not having the top buttoned all the time.
Yeah.
And it's fun that CST is going on. I hope it keeps going on. I hope it keeps that same ethos that they built originally. I think it will. I think most of the people that do it are good.
Yeah.
But it's always scary when it's the first group of people to sort of, okay, now you've got to take this and run with it as well. And I hope that you put your own spin on it, but also that you don't lose the magic that got us to where we are right now.
Yeah.
It's a long way. That's a long way of saying that, like, this is an interesting time just from a bigger picture of the fandom, the club, everything around it. What does the next generation do with it?
Yeah. It is interesting too. I mean, especially when we were just talking about Atlanta United, right? Came into this league hot as shit. I think their first season is 2016. So right in there with about when we started. And you can see the steam run out of that machine. Like their first or even second transitions didn't go very smoothly. I can't speak to exactly what's going on, amongst their supporters groups, and maybe they're very healthy, but we've absolutely seen that up in Columbus. There was a bunch of other groups that had a bunch of infighting and they sort of collapsed in on themselves. And now it's a weird mess up there. If you talk to fans who are part of the supporters groups and stuff like that. So
how do you keep it going? Like, what do you do? Like, what is the way? So like, let's say right now, we're sitting here. It's about to be the 10-year anniversary of FC Cincinnati. What is the plan to make sure, in your mind, or not the plan, what would your ideas be to make sure that when we're sitting here talking about the 20th anniversary of FC Cincinnati, we can look back over those past 10 years and think, man, it might not be exactly the same, but it's still a place you want to go, and it's still a place you recognize.
Yeah.
How do you keep it?
So this is a little, I don't know. This is how I've always viewed it, though, and this is maybe incredibly biased. But
we didn't plan this segment, by the way. So you can tell that we're going off the dome right here.
But I love this. I love this question because I've thought about this as well. I do think a big part of it is the front office was willing to cede not literally, but ownership to the supporters groups. I think that was key. And I think the second one was the supporters groups themselves had done a good job of offering up good leaders of the organizations. And what that meant was, especially in the early days, they were very engaged supporters groups members. We had really high turnout for supporters groups events, and voting was really good, and people were being, encouraged to run for office, and there were opportunities for people to get involved and to sort of dip their toes in and like it and keep going. And I think it is a multi-step process of ensuring that the supporters groups stay engaged with. So that's an onus on the membership, and that the supporters groups are then given the space by the front office, by the club, to have some say. How do they want the Bailey to go? Because if you try to, as the front office, impose a Bailey culture on supporters groups, you're going to create a conflict with either the solid leadership that you have created, or that has been created out of the supporters groups, or there's going to be poor leadership out of the supporters groups, and you're going to impose your will on them, and that is going to further drive away engaged supporters group members, and it's just going to fuel that self-eating circle faster. So I think at the end of the day, what I'm really saying is it comes down to engaged supporters groups. And being an engaged member of a supporters group is probably the best way to do it. Because the other thing is, if the front office does not give you that space, you publish a list of stadium demands that you would like online, and you get cursed out by ownership of the club. Yeah. There are levers you can pull to make sure hey, we have a good relationship, but we're our own thing, just so you know.
We didn't always take the right steps, but we took steps.
Yes.
It's fascinating. What would you say to the club? What does the club have to do? What is the club's role, do you think, in ensuring that this media, CST, how do you cultivate to make sure CST sticks around for another 10 years? Because I think the FC Cincinnati front office has kind of an opportunity to show the way here a little bit.
Yeah. Because
how many clubs around this country would kill for a CST covering their club? Right. That looks professional, is professional, provides almost daily content from a listenership and a readership point of view. It's sports are going to have to figure out what's next, because I don't know, the writing feels like it's on the wall for a lot of different types of media entities. And I don't know that you're going to be able to count on media entities paying to send people to cover your events.
Yeah. I mean, in an ideal world, the league would be finding the CST, or 2 or 3 ideally, in each of their markets or in their supporter space, and elevating them on the MLS Season Pass platform. There's no reason why CST's articles, or at least podcasts and video content, couldn't exist on that app. So that if I was a fan of FC Cincinnati and we're playing LAFC, I would love to be able to tab over to the LAFC page and, let's see, there's a podcast out from, this is their tactics podcast. They did an interview with a player. And these guys are goofing on the supporter culture around the team right now. You could probably get a good sense of what's going on there. That's what I would be doing. Now, I don't know. The FCC can't really do that on their own. No. That's what I would be doing as the league. And the CST already has to walk a nice fine line, as we all do, with how they cover the team and making sure that the coverage is fair and making sure that they're asking for comment when they're releasing particularly juicy stories and things like that. So they already have a good relationship with them. I don't know why we have to pretend that FCC is competing with them, or isn't allowed to acknowledge them or something. It's very weird.
What's funny too is, you think about it, that, okay, your broadcast partner is Apple, right?
Yeah.
Why wasn't part of this deal we went on the Apple Podcast app. We want a way to highlight, there should be like a channel on there, an MLS channel. There's like that dude that's doing voting right now for, whatever the guy is, like best journalist, best photographer, best pregame meal in the press box, best podcast, which, to be fair, I don't want to win that. We don't deserve to win that. Our content is not good enough, which is why I haven't retweeted his link. I don't want you voting for us. Vote for someone that actually knows what they're doing.
Right.
But why doesn't the league have an MLS podcast channel on the Apple Podcast app? Like, why aren't they doing that and leveraging this partnership to try and push more content up about this league?
Right.
I'm always amazed how much of the show turns into, why the hell isn't MLS doing anything? Just do something, for Christ's sake.
God, make it easier to be a fan. Why aren't they producing a First Take-esque show every single day for 1 hour? This is a similar story. So I do want to just say, hey, congrats, Brian. Congrats on leaving. It's got to feel good. Imagine how much more free time you get back in your life. So feels good. No, but on a similar note, we got a great question in the Discord from John B, who said, thanks for doing the podcast, but question, if you had enough personal time, could you deliver a 1 hour daily podcast on FCC? And I think the answer is... Hold on.
Before you give the answer,
yes.
John, I don't know if you're a Patreon. If you're not, we're answering your question. You know what to do. We're on the honor system right now.
Your
link is in the episode description, John.
You have a debt to pay.
Yeah, there's a cost, and only you will know if you don't do the right thing here.
I really love the idea of answering questions out of the Discord and then keeping
shaming
a tab.
People into paying $2,
keeping a tab and publishing it online.
Sending them a bill.
Josh, we've answered 3 of your questions this month, buddy. That's gonna be $6.
Just in the Discord, you get a DM with an invoice we have 3 questions and we answered. Right?
Stop asking good questions.
That would be such a dick move.
I especially love it because, again, I'm not entirely sure we'll answer all of these September questions in September.
Right. No, there's going to be people that paid for questions who are doing them for free from other people. I'm sorry. This was a great question that John asked, though. So this is worthwhile here.
He was asking, basically, if you had to, could you program a 1 hour daily podcast on FCC? To which I said, dude, I think you could do 2 or 3 hours on the radio if you had to on FCC. If that was my full-time gig, absolutely could do that for you. Not a problem.
Yeah. It's like Winston said in the Ghostbusters. If there's a steady paycheck involved, I'll believe whatever it is you want me to believe.
Exactly. But you expand that out to MLS, and that's stupid easy. And it is insane to me that Apple/MLS hasn't thought to do or attempted to do daily content, or extra time is on Monday, a tactic show's on Tuesday, an interview show's on Wednesday, something. I don't know.
I mean, you almost have to, right?
Right.
I mean, every other professional sports league in North America, there's an NFL network, there's NBA TV, there's an NHL network, there's MLB TV. You have the platform of Apple.
Yes.
You can do this. You know what else you can do? If you program a full days of content, you can give that away to YouTube TV, to Hulu. You can put it on Tubi. Yeah. They'll throw any channel they want on there as long as they don't have to pay for it. Yeah. That's value add to their customers. And you know what you can do? You can broadcast your studio show. You can broadcast classic matches. You can replay matches 3 or 4 days later. You can give away 1 match for free on a Wednesday night. And if you like what you see, for the low price of $79.99, you can go ahead and you subscribe to League Pass. Here's the code to join at the bottom of every single one of their episodes.
Man, I'm just imagining too, even if it was just a half-hour long MLS whip around show or something like that. Ideally, it's an hour long, but then you've already produced it. It's on your content. You could give it to Fox and ESPN for free and say, hey, you put this on ESPN2 every day at 3 p.m. it's yours. You have it for free. And maybe it goes nowhere, but it might also accidentally get your league in front of like 200,000 eyeballs.
Right. The morning show, like NFL does that. There's Good Morning Football. It's like they talk about football for 3 hours every day. You're telling me you couldn't talk MLS for an hour or 2 hours every day? You put one person on there that's a hot take artist. Right. You put a couple other people that are like, now calm down. That's kind of crazy, you know?
Right.
Yeah. What is stopping you from doing that as a league? What is the cost in this day and age? It's like, what? You're paying a couple people to be on a panel? You have a couple people living in New York that do this? Hell, you don't even have to live in New York. You can have them streaming into one another and do like the double head. I don't think Tony Kornheiser and Michael Wilbon have been in studio for PTI in years.
I was going to say, all of these shows are 50% remote, and half the guys are like doing it in their bathrooms or whatever. Yeah.
Right. The Pat McAfee show, AJ Hawk just sits on camera and doesn't say a damn thing as far as I can tell.
You can have Bradley Wright Phillips do that. Yeah.
Or you can have anybody doing that.
It is wild.
Why wouldn't you do that? And then, like, if you have a league content channel, yeah, you could show, like, throw CST a couple $100 and say, we'd like to put your podcast on at like 1 a.m.
Yeah.
2 a.m. Why? Because it's FC Cincinnati content. You know what? People can set their DVR and they can record it if they're not watching it live right there. If they're in a sicko insomniac, you can sit and watch it there.
Right.
Just create the perception that this league has people talking about it, that people want to talk about it.
And there is a, like, I don't know, there's a vibrant like podcast and video community that's around it. It's not huge, but there's absolutely people that you could tap to do different types of shows and things like that. Like there's a stable of talent that you could be tapping into. Just like, you know, in radio where you have like, oh, this guy is killing it in Toledo, let's give him a shot in Detroit, and he moves to Chicago, you know, like you move around markets. Yeah. All right, you did great on the Colorado podcast. Hey, do you mind doing a late night thing for MLS where you recap classic matches? Oh, okay, cool. Hey, this guy did really great here. How about you do our afternoon call-in show or whatever? Like you can start to cultivate an environment like that. I don't know.
That would be fun to try and figure out, like, what would the programming day look like for MLS TV?
We might have to put together like a daily schedule, like a weekday schedule and a weekend schedule. Yeah. I mean, they already do MLS 360. They already do the wrap-up show. Great. Perfect. Right. Already got halfway there. Make Taylor Twellman's stupid podcast, video podcast, there's another hour a week. Right. Put extra time back on, there's another hour a week. Like you can start building this out pretty quickly.
Right.
I don't know.
Although I don't want to do an hour a day podcast. We do too much. Like I can't imagine listening to me every day. I can't imagine listening to myself for an hour every day. No.
I you know, it's funny. When John had asked this question, I had that thought of like, oh my God, could you imagine if somebody hosted a 3-hour-long solo podcast? It'd be the most insane thing ever. And then I realized that's what sports radio hosts do every single day.
Yeah. Yeah, I listen to Mo Egger a lot. Right, like it turns out it's very compelling content when you listen to it.
Who knew? It's a viable thing. So
the thing that, you know, what would be great about this too, and this would be like an unintended consequence of MLS TV starting, and it would be worth starting MLS TV for this reason and this reason alone. And I say this when I say it would be worth starting, it would be worth the league starting MLS.TV, because it only works this way. And that's that if they started a TV network, they would need content for the TV network. If they started a morning studio show, they would need content for the morning studio show every day of the week. You know what that would mean? They would have to start being a lot more transparent to give their hosts more stuff to talk about, because it isn't fun to have the hot take artist on MLS Morning on, you know, From the Spot, the MLS Morning show.
Damn, great name.
It wouldn't be as much fun if they were guessing at how much GAM there was. But if you put the GAM tracker up publicly, then all of a sudden you can talk about well, they've got enough GAM to pull this deal off. Look, we can see right here, they've got this much left right here. Oh, look, here's their roster. They have these spots right here. You know, you're going to need some people to start talking and saying things that are bulletin board material. Maybe the head coach now has to give a press conference every single day. Like in the NFL, one coach talks to the media every day. So maybe Mondays with Pat Noonan, Tuesdays with Kenny Arena, Wednesdays with Dom Kinnear. And all of a sudden, every media, every market has a manager giving comments every day of the week. And that's content for your shows. So by starting the channel, you might actually get this league to start making some noise and being interesting for a change.
God. Oh,
we can dream. We can dream.
They launched a streaming platform dedicated to MLS and then just didn't put content on it. I'm astounded.
That isn't talked about enough. That you have a tab dedicated to your network on the streaming platform for the most valuable corporation on the planet.
Yeah.
And the content you're offering is 7-minute match recaps.
Ugh.
And occasionally like a short or something like that.
It's so weird. It is so weird.
It doesn't make any sense.
Are the billionaire owners of MLS poor? What's happening here?
Right? Like right here, I'm going to click on FC Cincinnati on the Apple TV thing. So they've got the games. They have best of 2024 FC Cincinnati. We have an interview with Lucho Acosta.
Cool.
Star of the day, Luca Orishano. Interview with Luca Orishano. It's all clips.
Wow.
It's
right.
Best of Kevin Kelsey. Here's some clips. Nonstop Flight. Which has been out for months.
Yeah, the Made for Cable 2020 or 2019 documentary that got cut up and turned into 5 episodes.
Like how is there not on this tab right here? How is there not like a 20-minute or a 15-minute weekly studio show about FC Cincinnati that the club is hosting or somebody is hosting?
Chidozie Awazim. How about, interview with him, clips of him.
Well, they do have they have a Chidozie. It's
okay.
Here it is right here. It is Cincy Sounds with Chidozie Awazim.
Hey,
it is 1 minute in length.
Good. You got your money's worth on that one.
It has to be longer than this. No, it's 1 minute and 5 seconds.
Well, that's good.
What are we doing here?
Taylor.
What are we doing, Taylor?
He works. What
are we doing here?
I bet you could record 2 whole minutes with him if you really tried.
I mean, we recorded 15 and we suck at this.
FCC, you can have our interview if you want it.
Yeah, this is the chief speaking on behalf of the Post LLC. You can have the audio.
Yeah. It's
Maybe
yours.
you don't want it, but it's yours.
I'll sign the rights away to that 15 minutes.
This is how you can tell no one who likes soccer actually works for MLS.
Yeah. Or Apple, maybe.
Maybe.
It's so weird.
Don't you think Apple would want more? That they're paying all this money for MLS? Don't you think they would look at the league and be like, so just games?
Right.
We're not going to do anything else here? Wasn't there... Don't you remember when they signed this deal that there was supposed to be, hours of content and there was like this big staffing up because the league needed to provide more content?
Yeah.
And
they built temporary studios and then spent all off season going into this year building better studios, which I honestly couldn't tell you the difference between the two. Why?
I don't even put this on FC Cincinnati because there's obviously
this is not on FCC, but yeah.
But where is because it starts at the top. There's no national MLS stuff on there. So why the hell would you expect the clubs to pick the heavy lifting up on this?
No, and yes, it would be really good for all of the clubs to have other stuff. But the other thing is, again, as we mentioned, the CSTs of the world are already producing this content. There's no reason why you couldn't work closer together with them to highlight it and promote it and co-host it, as in make it available on this platform. But yeah, they need to do a league-wide thing. And I don't know if they still do it. It's been a while since I've been able to track it down because they don't make it widely available. They used to do a weekly recap by it was narrated by two British people, a British woman and a British man, and it was awesome. It was compelling. They told you the storylines of the games as they went through. They would have like extended things. It was like a match of the day for MLS. It was so good. And they just absolutely buried it inside of the streaming app. It was so weird. And it became hard for me to find. I think they changed the name of it halfway through there. So I don't know. If that's still out there, please somebody send me a link, because that was some of the best content they ever did. And now I don't know where it is. So
yeah,
damn.
Oh, hey, we got here stories from around the ring. Twellman's takes.
Oh, cool.
There we go.
Just
6
clips
minutes of
of his
Twellman's
podcast.
It is just clips of his podcast. There could be so much more here. Ah, well.
Jeez.
What do I know about anything? I'm just a dumb podcast host.
Well,
can't even do an hour. Can't even do an hour a day. And he's begging for 24 hours.
Oh, I wouldn't do it, but somebody should. Yeah.
No, not at all.
Chief, before we head on over to part two, there is one tiny little thing I've got to talk about, which is the fact that it is 10 p.m. as of the moment of me saying the sentence out loud, and the Open Cup won't come on for another half an hour. So that's really cool as an East Coast fan.
Way to stay relevant, U.S. Open Cup. Way to stay relevant. But it's the final, right?
This is the final. This is the big one. Do you know who's in it?
I do. It's Sporting Kansas City.
Yes.
Portland.
LAFC.
Oh.
Our opponent this week.
Oh, there you go. Good on them.
Well, what makes it really funny is it is really hard for us to now preview this game because, like, I don't know. We'll do a whole preview and then Giroud will blow out his knee in this game.
Don't say that. I like Olivier.
Well, I mean, he's not been much of a threat on the field so far in MLS. But
don't say that. Don't say that either.
I do appreciate
for all the bluster and for all the save the Open Cup. It's going to happen to the sound of no one clapping at 10:30 p.m. on a Wednesday.
Yeah,
cool.
Oof, rough. But yeah,
I mean, I love the Open Cup. Open Cup is great. Just the people that are in charge of making decisions for the Open Cup are their own worst enemies. I understand MLS has not been a good partner in this regard, but man, it's it's hard to take the side of the Open Cup when they just keep stepping on rakes and they're like actively looking for more rakes to step on at all times.
Yeah, it's yeah, the Open Cup's not doing themselves any favors. And then, like, who is supporting the Open Cup also always makes me pause. Like, it was the other day when it was like Dick Cheney announces he's supporting Kamala Harris. I had to pause and be like, wait, what are we doing here?
Wait, whose side am I on? Who's on my side? Who's in the foxhole here with me?
Yeah, wait a second. I don't think we're supposed to be here together.
Something has gone awry. I don't think. If you're here, oh no! Is there any like the problem is like when would you play this otherwise?
I've always said that they should plant the Open Cup on a holiday. So like I would take like the Black Friday as being like Open Cup Day and play it at like noon and make it a big thing. I don't know.
Play it the day after the Major League Baseball All-Star game.
Yeah, why not? That seems good.
They get it all done early.
Do the entire Open Cup in the month of like from like June 15th to July 15th and have all the leagues take a break and then just run it all in like 4 weeks.
I don't hate that. I don't hate that at all.
The
problem is it needs the kickoff of the game. It needs to be on like a Saturday, a Sunday, or an off day because you need to have it built in that if it's on the West Coast, you can still play it when people can watch it, which means maybe it's a 4:00 kick on the West Coast on a Saturday, or maybe it's a noon kick. So it's 3 p.m. Eastern time. But like 10:30 on a Wednesday. See, these are things too where you look at your Euro hardo online who says, we should be more like the Bundesliga or the England, and imagine if we had the same culture. It's like, brother, they're all in the same goddamn time zone. Like, they don't even have to worry about this problem. Like, the European mind cannot comprehend that their domestic cup might be kicking off at 10 o'clock when the majority of the people in the country are going to bed. Right. On a weekday, the entire country can't take a 2-hour train ride to the stadium where the game is happening. Right. Yeah. What would happen if a team from Hawaii or Alaska had hosting privileges? When would you play this game?
I think you have to do it at like 8:30 p.m. local time. So, yeah.
So like what? Hawaii's 6 hours ahead of us. They kick off at 7:30 local time. The game is at 1 a.m. Again, the European mind cannot comprehend.
You might actually get viewers from Europe then at that time zone, though.
No, what time would that be?
Plus 5 more hours. So
like when they're waking up they'd be waking up for,
You do it on a Saturday. Perfect.
Sure, why not? Meanwhile, it's like it's competing with Aussie rules football for viewership here in the United States.
Darts replays,
It's either the U.S. Open Cup or watching the Western Bulldogs versus the Geelong Cats. Why not? The hell with it.
Love that you have the T names there.
Way to stay relevant, U.S. Open Cup.
Oh, Chief, I have some late breaking news for you.
Oh, no.
Not related to Pavel Bucha.
Okay.
You're good there. The Columbus Crew have lost to Club America in the Campeones Cup final. Huzzah. They lost 5-4 on penalties.
So they were playing America.
Columbus Crew versus America.
So they were anti-American is how you would describe the Columbus Crew tonight?
Absolutely.
And the ultimate anti-Americans are who? Terrorists.
Yeah.
So the Columbus Crew, therefore, are terrorists.
Obviously. The logic is sound.
Right.
They played, as far as I can tell, their absolute first choice lineup.
What was the final?
1-1 and then 5-4 in penalties.
Man,
so
it's just the toughest of tough scenes right there.
Yeah, you hate to see it.
You do absolutely. You hate to see it.
I do love that MLS is such a petty bitch that they would schedule Campeones Cup for the exact same night as Open Cup.
Well, now this just motivates the Crew to go win MLS Cup, doesn't it?
No, it means the vibes are down in Columbus.
Vibes are dead. That's right. Many people saying terrible vibes around the Columbus Crew right now.
They're getting used to losing at home, baby. That's what I like to see.
Love that. We can't have a first segment without one bit of FC Cincinnati news. Pavel Bucha returns to training.
Hey,
glad to have you back.
All right, now let's head on over to part 2, Chief. Let's answer a couple of Patreon questions. People who actually paid to have their questions answered.
Right.
And then we'll go ahead and preview this match at the weekend. Oh, and before we get to the next part of the episode, I do want to tell you about our friends over at Cincy Shirts. They have been with us from the beginning. They were one of the very first supporters of FC Cincinnati. They were our very first sponsor here at the Post. We absolutely love them. They have the best gear for all of your Cincinnati sports, Cincinnati memorabilia. You got a fun community that you're a part of. They probably have a relevant Cincy shirt for you on their website or in one of their 3 locations. They're in Oakley Hyde Park, they're in Loveland, and they're over in Fort Mitchell in Kentucky. Really, really good people. They will print on demand in their shop. If they have a design on their website that they are not, if they don't have stock in their store, they will print on demand for you. They are awesome. One thing that I promised you they will never have stock of, but absolutely do sell, are the Post shirts. They have shirts from us. We have made designs that are up on the website. You can find a link to them in the description of this episode. go check them out in person. And if you tell them which design you want printed on a shirt right then and there, they'll do it for you. It's great. And I know it's great because I've been able to do it myself. Really good folks. And hey, while you're there picking up Post merch or Bengals merch or anything else, you drop this code, ThePostCincy, all one word, all caps, get 10% off your next order. Again, the promo code is ThePostCincy. 10% off your next order for anything from Cincy Shirts. It's an awesome, awesome deal. Click the link in the description below as well for links to our merch. Otherwise, a huge thank you to Cincy Shirts for sponsoring this episode. And thank you, listener, for using that code. All right, we are back. And Chief, before you get to the Patreon questions, I have some exciting news for you.
Oh, boy.
We're doing a live show. We're doing it again, baby.
Now when you say we,
some of us are doing a live show. Chief will not be able to make it. Man,
no.
Tough scenes, but
it is. I'll be available by phone, perhaps. Yeah.
We'll make you available in some way, shape, or form. However, folks should know decision day. You needed plans? I got your plans. You're headed to Street Side. For 2 hours leading up to kickoff, we will be live at Street Side. TBD on guests and giveaways, but I am planning some fun stuff. So be there for that. And then, we'll stick around and watch FC Cincinnati take on the Philadelphia Union on decision day. Maybe the game will mean something. Maybe it won't. But really, spiritually, it's sort of a rescheduling of Ope Fest. I have to talk to Jonah about this. I don't know if we want to officially designate this Ope Fest, but it could very well be.
What would be more Ope Fest than a potentially meaningless game after seating has been locked up?
Man, nothing. That's perfect.
Before I forget, too, this weekend at Street Side, it's their anniversary party, and friends of the show, Jim Trace and the Makers, will be playing between 3 and 6 p.m. So maybe go on down there, catch the first hour of them before you head down to TQL Stadium for LAFC. It's where I'll be. So don't want to forget that. It's a cool event that Street Side's putting on. And some good music from our friends at Jim Trace. So Street Side, place to be, it turns out. Yeah,
I intend to be there as well for that first 45 minutes to an hour set that they do there. So yeah, absolutely. Come check it out. Say hi if you run into one of us. That'd be fun. So yeah, Chief, that is the big announcement, but we do have a couple of questions here to get to from the Patreon. So if you want to support us, there's a link in the description. It goes to the Patreon. We ask for a way too much money, $2 a month. You can support us. That is the only tier that is available. So don't even think about doing a penny more. And you don't get much, but you do get to ask us a question every month, so long as you stay subscribed. So these are the folks that subscribed. They asked us questions, and Chief, I'll start off with this one. This comes from William Specht Casper. It's a great name. Who asks, mainly for Chief, since he seems to enjoy the nerdy side of life. But Grayson and Kevin, feel free to comment. Oh, wow. Thanks. What was your favorite Nintendo game franchise growing up? Mario, Zelda? Did you miss Pokemon? ?
I did miss Pokemon. Just a little too old for Pokemon, unfortunately. I'm aware of the phenomenon. Just, wasn't my age range. It was a little more of my sister's age range. Favorite Nintendo franchise growing up? I'm an OG Final Fantasy head. Love all those, played all those, beat all those, spent way too many hours doing that. I'm currently playing through, actually, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth right now.
Nice.
Fantastic. Just great game. I was more of a Zelda person than a Mario person. Big fan of that. My feelings on the silent protagonist are well known. I was an absolute child of the Nintendo era. You name it, I played it. I did not have friends. It was just upstairs on the pad, on the sticks the entire time.
Chief, as somebody who was very much on the Pokemon train, I still have my original copy here next to me.
You.
On my still working Game Boy Advance SP that I still use. I keep it on the desk here close to me if I'm particularly waiting for the podcast to finish downloading. I will boot it up and play it. I've had to do a battery swap twice on it now, but I've maintained the original save. I still have my very first starter from back in elementary school.
What I did, so I'm still in OG Nintendo head. I have my Super Nintendo Mini in my office.
Nice.
Still. When I was in law school, I spent an inordinate amount of time playing Tecmo Bowl on emulators on my laptop. And man, did I get good at playing Tecmo Bowl on a keyboard. I was really, really good at playing Super Tecmo Bowl when I should have been otherwise paying attention. I would probably be much better at my job if I hadn't been doing all of that.
That is hilarious. William, to answer your question, Pokemon has a soft spot in my heart. Zelda's my answer, though. But I will say, most underrated Nintendo franchise, Advance Wars. I am addicted to that stupid game.
Advance Wars? Yeah.
Advance Wars. I have it on.
Oh, was this Nintendo specific? Okay, so I said Final Fantasy. That's nonsense.
It was on the Super Nintendo though, so I was willing to.
And OG Nintendo as well. I had the original. Zelda is absolutely the right answer then in that space. I would hear arguments for Metroid and Mario Kart. Super Metroid, one of the greatest games ever made. Up there, love it, good stuff. I do listen to a lot of Bit Brigade when I go to the gym. If you're not familiar with them,
yes,
they're just they're a rock band that plays nothing but old school Nintendo era 8-bit chip tunes. So they've got one album that's the Mega Man 2 soundtrack. They've got a Castlevania soundtrack album. They've got a Zelda soundtrack album. It is fantastic running music. You can't pick better running music.
Chief, have you ever heard the Ocarina of Rhyme album?
No, but
I'm gonna need
boy, am I excited!
Gonna need you to note that it is right.
Consider me noted.
Fan creation of a lot of classic hip hop songs with Ocarina of Time songs, and it is weirdly good.
Yeah, I used to have a playlist of nothing but rap music that sampled video games, and it was kind of fire.
That's fun.
The Clubhouse leader there's a Wiz Khalifa song that sampled a track from Chrono Trigger that was just absolute fire. It was just so good. Anyway, I am a nerd.
Oh, I love it. This is a good one. Kyle Lucal asks, what is the post starting 11 of Cincinnati/Northern Kentucky breweries?
Ooh.
I think we can do this one, Chief.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously street side.
Street side. Where does street side go?
Attacking mid.
I like attacking mid. I was going to say it's kind of our Yuya Kubo, right? Like,
yeah. Does everything well.
They do everything well. They're proficient at all styles. I like it.
Yeah.
Speaking of, Chief. Okay, so an earlier question. Sorry, we will get back to this. Just an earlier question. I scrolled past it just a second ago. Nick Keevy had asked, how can the Chief and I make our pregame ritual malort Cincy style? The fine folks over at Streetside have,
or at least someone that works at Streetside,
has definitely heard the challenge, and we happen to know of a Cincy chili spirit that is being, I'll say, developed. Steeped is probably the correct word here, but is being developed. So TBD on that one. But we may be trying a Cincy chili spirit at some point.
You thought the busboy was tough. This one might be. we might have bitten off more than we can chew on this one, I think.
We'll wash a buskboy down with a. We'll need a name for our Cincy spirit, but. And Ezard Charles.
Ooh, I like that. It's just a punch in the face.
Yeah, that's fun. Okay, sorry. Back to the 11.
Okay, so attacking mid, street side.
Okay.
All right, you take the next one. We'll just alternate.
So this is funny. I don't know if they're still their own individual label or not, but I'm going to put triple digit in goal because I need something big and hefty back there.
I like that.
These were the Listerman beers that were extremely high ABV and very heavy dark beers.
Right. I'm going to throw Northern Row does lagers better than just about anyone in the city. Lager, one of the hardest beers to do right, I would say. Can't make a mistake doing a lager. If you make a mistake doing a lager, any imperfection is going to be straight through the beer. It's not going to be any good. Position that can't afford to make a mistake, defensive mid. You always got to be on your P's and Q's playing defensive mid. Breakdown in the defensive mid is going to lead to problems for your back line. I got Northern Row at my defensive midfield.
I love that answer. Up top, our star striker, our DP striker is going to be Rheingeist.
I was going to say the same thing. Okay. Yeah.
Look, super flashy. They've got all the marketing. They're slick as hell. They're not going to play defense.
No. And they do one thing well. Strikers do one thing well. And Rheingeist, God love them, they make IPAs. And that's the only goddamn thing they do well.
We got a lager. Oh, yeah, it's a hoppy lager. You son of a bitch.
Right. Tell me more about this British mild. Well, we throw a shitload of Galaxy hops in it. It's like, you bastards can't keep getting away with this.
All right. So we've got a striker, a goalkeeper, an attacking mid, and a defensive mid. Chief, where are we going next?
I think we need to go to the back line. We need someone that's a sturdy center back, stalwart, someone that you can really, you just anchor the back line. Someone that, you plant it and it's right there and you don't have to worry about it. I'm talking Mad Tree. I got Mad Tree.
Was center back
right there.
Exactly the same thing if you didn't do that. Mad Tree is absolutely your center back for very similar reasons. I will go across the river and put Braxton as our center back pairing with Mad Tree as just solid, not going to steer you wrong. They'll be just fine back there.
All right. You want somebody out. All right. So we have two center backs already. We've got a striker, defensive mid, and attacking mid, right? Are we writing this down? Like we're going to start taking notes while I do this. Make sure get your lineup maker out that you use all the goddamn time in the Discord.
You'd think I would just have that ready to go here, wouldn't you?
All right. So are we doing the same formation the FC plays? Is that the way we're going to do this?
Yeah. I'm going to try to copy FCC here.
All right, so we're going to need a wing back. We're a formation that plays wing backs. You need a wing back that's out on especially the left-hand side to do the interchange with your attacking mid with street side. You need someone with some star power, but you need someone that's flashy, someone that can occasionally do the spectacular. And for that reason, I'm going with Brink in North College Hill. Great beers.
I love that pick.
Wins a lot of awards and occasionally does the spectacular. I like Brink as our left wing back on this team.
I like that. So that's the left wing back here?
Yeah.
Okay. So on the right wing back, I'm going to go what I feel like is sort of what happens with FC Cincinnati's right wing backs, which is sort of mysterious, little enigmatic over there. I'm going to go with Fibonacci.
Oh, good choice.
Good vibes.
Yeah.
But you never know quite what you're going to get over there. It's a good one. I like that one.
Right. Second striker.
Ooh, I've got a pick, but I want to hear what you think.
Second striker has to be a little different.
Yep.
Has to be someone that, it's okay if we don't score goals. We're there to facilitate the other striker. And for that reason, my second striker is Urban Artifact.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Chief. We are on the same wavelength here.
You know what? We got one striker and he's an incredible goal scorer. We got this other guy. He brings a completely different skill set than the other striker. Yes. Maybe he's good at hold up play. Maybe if the number one striker is the hold up striker, you need the person that's making the darting runs. You're going completely off type from the two strikers. They got to be a little bit of yin and yang. I got Urban Artifact as my second striker.
I I love that a lot. Okay, so we have an attacking mid. We have a defensive mid. We need a sort of box-to-box mid. There's a couple of different directions we could go with this. If you have an idea, I will take an idea here.
For the box-to-box mid, so you need someone that's like a little bit of a do-everything type person right here. You need someone who has the ability to... they might not be the flashiest name you're thinking of. They might not be, but like they're solid, and you're never going to have a bad time with it. They're always going to be in position. They're always going to do what they want. My box-to-box midfielder is West Side Brewing, because they're never your first choice in terms of like what you think the top breweries in this town are, but product is consistently good. A lot of different styles, a lot of different stuff going on. They have Catch a Fire Pizza now that Mad Tree cut them loose there. Great tap room. That little area in Westwood is really, really good. I got West Side Brewing as my box-to-box.
Wow, I love it. And that leaves us with one more center back, a solid base, a good do everything, or it's just a solid option. I'm tempted to say Sonder. Going way up into the northern burbs. I think they do a solid beer there. Started by a bunch of dads in their garage. So it's like feels center back vibes. But I'm open to suggestions here.
So my choice for that final spot would be Big Ash Brewing in Anderson.
That was my second choice here. So I like it.
It's a younger pick. It's hasn't been on the scene as long. I would also be open here to Narrow Path up in Loveland, which is, a little bit of a smaller, undersized player, but still, gives it its all, punches above its weight in terms of beer quality. Grainworks also, I think, works in this space as well.
Grainworks is good. Oh man, now I feel bad.
We gotta have one though. We gotta pick one. Who are we picking?
You know what? I'm gonna go Grainworks. If nothing else, their work on Hellas Real is enough to get me over the edge there. So
let's give the starting lineup to the people for our starting 11.
All right, here you go. In goal is triple digit / Listerman, because again, I'm not entirely clear if they're in fact their own thing. Our center backs are Braxton, Madtree, and Grainworks. Our left back is Brink. Our right back is Fibonacci. We got Northern Row and Westside Brewing in the midfield. Ahead of them, Street Side, and our two strikers up top, Rheingeist and Urban Artifact.
It's a solid lineup right there.
That's a pretty good lineup.
That's a starting 11 that'll give you a wicked hangover if you hit all 11 of them in a single day.
Managed by Christian Moorline, even though I know they sold out and they're not real anymore. But
R.I.P. in peace.
Or maybe just Hootapole. This is really
managed by Hootie Delight. No, Little King. Managed by Little Kings.
There we go. The Little Kings is the name of the coaching staff.
That was an absurd question, but I like where we ended up on that one.
That was really fun. Let me see what else. Drew asks a good one that I will find the answer to. When? I don't know. But Drew asks, as of right now, who has the best record at predicting matches? Drew, I don't know. We have not been writing these down.
I want it noted that I wanted to track this and have a punishment for whoever picked the worst on this trio. And Grayson objected to every one of my suggestions for punishments because they were all involved in doing things that he would have absolutely no desire to do. Like I wanted us to do, you have to drive and eat a brisket sandwich at 5 different Buc-ee's locations over the course of a weekend.
Which might get easier if they keep opening some up around here.
I mean, it's going to be you're going to be driving a little bit.
There's another question on here that is great that I definitely want to wait until we have Grayson back. So there is that. Let me just quickly see here. We do have another day for questions. So I just want to see if there's anything else. Oh, gosh, I don't like that. Okay, I think we're good for right now. Or actually, how about this one, Chief? We'll ask this last one. Comes from David Ziegler. Who's the drunkest MLS fan base and who drinks the most and the best? David goes ahead and gives us a top 5 ranking that starts with number 1, Cincinnati, and none of the other ones are filled out. So I think that part's on us.
I mean, the Bailey's pretty drunk.
Bailey drinks quite a bit.
Bailey does drink quite a bit. I drink quite a bit at MLS matches as well. I probably should stop that.
I don't know if it is the drunkest, but LAFC
looks like they throw a lot of beer in the air when they score. So I assume there's a lot of beer being served at LAFC.
In their first home match, Muslim player on their team whose name I forget had scored like the game winner and got doused in alcohol. He had to ask the fans to please stop doing that.
It's tough scenes. Please respect my religion, but find better ways to celebrate. I would have water available just for when he scores.
Yeah. Chief, where would Montreal rank for you in terms of a drinking crowd?
They weren't that drunk. Also, okay. Canadian beer low-key sucks. I mean, we don't talk about that enough. Molson is good, but once you get past Molson and Labatt, there's not a lot going on up there. They were moderately drunk, I would say. They were okay. I'll tell you what, that's a fun fan base, though. That is my leading vote for away days next year is going to Montreal.
Oh, we're getting a direct flight these days. It'll be super easy.
Absolutely. Who else would be up there in terms of drinking? I bet Charlotte's pretty drunk. I don't have any proof of that, but like that's NASCAR country.
I think they all drink Bud Lights with lime in Charlotte. So
with lime.
That makes sense.
I mean, certainly not Chicago. Nobody shows up to those games.
Not Chicago. You know what? San Jose is definitely a low-key drinking supporters group, I will say. There's not a lot of them, but the San Jose Ultras are one of the very few Ultras groups that like people genuinely gave us warnings about.
Yeah.
And they do sort of cheer for their team mostly without shirts. It's kind of their thing.
Out of spite, too, because they haven't been good in forever.
You got to respect that.
Yeah. I'd say we're clubhouse leaders have to be in Cincinnati.
Absolutely. Absolutely. After that, I don't know.
It was, I don't know if we've ever talked about this on the air. When they, this is old school supporters group stories with Chief. When we joined MLS, the club knew early on that they wanted to have some sort of a ritual.
Yes.
I think that the genesis of this was, I think, Timber Joey or Timber John, where they saw the log in Portland when they score goals. And then like Atlanta, they had the spike that they hit. And so they always had, they wanted every team to have something. It was clearly some league edict because we got told we want to do something. What do you want? And then nobody had an idea that was acceptable. And so we just ended up with pulling the sword, which you know what? I thought it was dumb as hell when it was presented. And I
thought it'd be awful.
I thought this was going to be terrible. And it's actually kind of electric. So this is why it's good I no longer have these conversations with people. Like my input is not valuable in this space. But my suggestion for what the thing for Cincinnati should be would be playing on our brewing tradition.
Yeah.
And that they have like a keg and that somebody taps the keg and then they pour a beer and then they go in front of the Bailey with the beer and everybody chugs right there before the start of the game. And then I was told that would not be appropriate for the family friendly environment that Mr. Linder was trying to foster at TQL Stadium.
I loved that idea. And I think you had a similar one that was like every time a goal is scored, they fill up another stein of beer. And then there's a collection of steins like somewhere in the stadium of all of the goals that are scored.
Yeah, that like the goal scorer would have a stein and they would get the stein engraved while the game was going. And at the end, all the players would pose with the steins and that they would be on display somewhere, like at the bar behind the Bailey or in the First Financial Club. So as the year went on, they would have more and more steins with all the players, like their names engraved on them. And then my idea is that there would be a goal of the year. And whatever the goal of the year was would stay behind the bar. And you'd have like the 2019, 20, 21. And then all the rest of the steins that had the players' names on it, you get the player to autograph them, and then you'd auction them off for charity at the end of the year so that you could buy, a stein from Lucho Acosta. And you could like pair it up with the goal. Like this was the stein from like the goal that Lucho scored last year where he went 1v11 with the entire, I forget which team that was that he just let me solo him.
Yeah,
Charlotte.
Yeah.
Where like you could get the stein that was engraved for Lucho's goal on he juked everyone on this, and you'd raise some money for a local charity for the FC Cincinnati Foundation doing that.
Oh, see, that's such a cool idea.
I still think that with the sword they pull, that they should, after they pull the sword, they should engrave it with the final score and the name of the person that pulled the sword, and they should have it on a wall somewhere. And there should be a wall of swords for everyone who has pulled the sword prior to the game.
That would be so cool.
Can you imagine how metal that would be after like 10 years if there was like, 17 swords for every year, like 170 swords on some wall, and has each name of like the celebrity. And you could go there and it would be like, being at a steakhouse where you see all those like dusty pictures of people that have eaten there.
Right.
Where you can like, holy shit, GB pulled a sword? Who the hell is GB? Well, let me tell you, son. Let me tell you about the legend of GB Fall right here.
Oh man. I
think that would be neat. But
or even like a display outside of the stadium, like as you're walking in, there'd be like some sort of like giant thing.
Yeah.
A throne of swords.
Of swords, yeah. That they can then donate to the Bengals for like the King of the Jungle. And the King of the Jungle sits on the sword throne of swords from FC Cincinnati. And then there's just, they call that corporate synergy right there.
And then they throw that giant hunk of metal onto the field at Great American Ballpark, and that's our new second baseman.
Still more mobile than Rich Aurelio when he played here.
Oh, God. Chief, I think I was going to do it for the Patreon questions. Let's head on over to part 3. There is a match to preview against a team that still has yet to kick off.
Still.
Let's go over and do that. All right, and we're back, Chief. This weekend, LAFC comes to town, and they will face FC Cincinnati. It'd be weird if they didn't face us. I'm quickly looking at their lineup that they have here for the Open Cup. They're going for it. They put their full strength team out there. I know they rotated on their league match going into this, which is partially why Dallas beat them 3-1. Also, for what it's worth, LAFC in regulation has not won a game in 5 matches.
Really?
Yeah. Lost to Dallas. Drew Austin 1-1, lost to LA Galaxy in El Clasico, or El Trafico, excuse me.
Yeah.
Then it was a 0-0 draw against the Houston Dynamo. And then before that, it was a 2-0 loss to the Houston Dynamo. So
they're not scoring a lot of goals.
No. Before that, they beat the Seattle Sounders 1-0. And the game before that, they lost to Crew 3-1. So that takes you all the way back to August 25th. So in the last month, they've only won 1 game pending the results of the Open Cup, which will conclude after we're done doing the podcast. I'm not going to do this for another 90 minutes.
No. God, no. You can look the score up later.
Yeah. But in terms of what you'd look for FC Cincinnati, in general, good. I like that they're playing a Wednesday midweek match. I like that they're playing most of their, if not all of their, sort of key starters on this one. And I like that they're in a bit of a rough patch right now.
I guess you could say they're due, I guess.
Hopefully they try really hard and win tonight and then they all have to take a rest on Saturday. So then they're not due anymore, and they're tired.
We've never beaten LAFC, is my understanding. I think this is our third time playing them. We're 0-2 so far, but
that feels right.
Yeah, just more fun that like you never really play certain teams in this league. Should be a full strength FC Cincinnati first choice lineup. My question is, who's starting at striker?
Oh, I mean, assuming everybody's healthy and assuming there aren't rotations, not to say there shouldn't be or there won't be, but let's assume for a second there aren't rotations being made to the squad. It has to be Kubo and Kelsey. I know this is your crusade, but
it is. I think that they are hell-bent on playing Joe Aquini to see what they have and to see if they can have him in shape for the playoffs. I think that someone on this coaching staff really, really likes Nicholas Joe Aquini.
I mean, like we discussed last week or the last episode, like his movement is fine, but the final pass isn't there. The shot isn't quite there, although he did score the one that was controversially called back. But man, to not have Kubo and Kelsey up there and just getting reps, we only have 4 more matches left in the season. Mm-hmm. Like, this is it. We gotta find our strike pairing and go with it. And it cannot be Joe Aquini and whoever the hot hand is. I think that's a really bad system. I don't know. Let's assume it's not going to be Kubo and Kelsey. Who do you think the coaching staff puts up there?
I think it's going to be Giacchini, and I think it's going to be Kelsey. I think it should be Kubo and Kelsey, but I think it's going to be Giacchini and Kelsey. I don't get it, but that's, I think, where the coaching staff's head is at right now. And they keep wanting to do anything but the thing I think they need to do, which they're paid to do it. I sit here on a podcast no one listens to. I'm open to being pleasantly surprised, though. But I think that, to me, I do not understand how how a guy with 10 goals scored, despite playing in every goddamn place on the pitch. Like, you've tried your hardest to try and not start this player.
Yeah. And,
at that one position, because he's been needed elsewhere, he still managed to get you a double-digit goals. He's only 2 goals behind Lucho Acosta for the team lead. Like,
that is insane.
Right? Like, if you were to go back and tell yourself last December when Yuya Kubo re-signed with this team, because people forget, we didn't think he'd be back. We thought we were joking that, he's got the unlimited option. But the idea of him coming back on less money, I didn't have that on my bingo card. I thought he'd go someplace else. He's not tied to the region in any way. Turns out he loves it here. And that helped us. But if you were to go back to last winter and tell yourself, hey, guess what? Yuya Kubo is the leading goal scorer for FC Cincinnati, which might end up happening. You would think the wheels had fallen off this team. You would ask yourself, did they get relegated? We don't even have pro rel in this country. Did they get relegated?
Would Nick Marcanic be the leading goal scorer? Kubo, the last time he was the leading goal scorer on this team, it was 2021, and I think he had 3 goals.
3 goals. Yeah. I think that he's got to start, but I don't think he will. I think it'll be Joe Aquini will be the starter along with Kevin Kelsey. Otherwise, I expect the full choice, first choice lineup. I guess the only other bit of intrigue is Luka inverted or traditional. It feels like this is like ordering wings or ordering like something like Colonel Sanders fried chicken. It's like traditional or extra crispy.
I'll take Luka boneless and Yedlin.
Not if the Ohio Supreme Court has anything to say about it.
It's just boneless in giant quotations.
Right. People forget if that decision would have gone the other way, you'd have to call them chicken nuggets, and nobody wants to be an adult ordering chicken nuggets. So you should be thanking the Supreme Court.
Processed chicken cubes, thanks.
Yes.
No, I think it's got to be Luka on the left and Yedlin on the right. I don't know. Again, assuming nobody is being rotated, nor should anybody be rotated.
At this point, no.
the next game is a week from now. Then, or kind of, oh no, there's a Wednesday game, but it's next Wednesday.
That's Future Us's problem.
Yeah.
This is your measuring stick game right here. This is a game that you should want, because LAFC, despite their run of form, this is a game that you should want to see how you match up with.
Yeah.
You should want to see what this looks like. You're playing at home. You want to get some mojo back at home. I understand it looks like they're on the road with NYCFC midweek.
You rotate that game.
Yeah, rotate on the baseball field. Yeah, rotate then.
Whatever weird baseball field they have them playing on. Yeah, absolutely. And there's a decent chance that if you are successful in the playoffs, this is an MLS Cup preview. You absolutely need to know what these guys look like against your best team. Absolutely. Yeah. Even if they're rotated, because this LAFC team, even rotated, pretty damn good. Kai Kamara and Carlos Vela will potentially be starting against us for the rotated LAFC.
Well, here's the other thing, too. This team hasn't been good enough over the last month to take the foot off the gas. Like they need to be finding form right now. This is not a time to dick around with things. Like, go put the best product you can out on the field. You owe the home crowd another win. Send the home crowd happy. There's only a few home games left. Yeah.
Look, we sandwiching Leagues Cup. This team had 4 league losses in a row. There are now 4 league games undefeated, 2 draws in there. Yeah. A win here would go a long way to fixing a lot of those vibes.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, the season's almost over. Like, it's time to get ready for the playoffs. It's time to put your best lineup out there. No excuses.
Yeah. Chief, I usually ask this at the beginning, but I'll ask it now towards the end. What are the vibes going into this game? How do we feel about the team going into this match? We excited?
I think it's uncertain.
Yeah.
Uncertain still. If I were to tell you this team loses 2 of 3 in the first round of the playoffs, would you be shocked?
Ugh.
No, I mean, genuinely, would you be shocked? I wouldn't.
2 of 3?
Now, remember, because this goes to penalties. So you're saying it could be a draw, losing PKs.
And then lose 1-0 on the road.
Yeah. Like, would that really shock you if that was the way? Last year at this time, you'd have been floored if they lost in the first round of the MLS Cup playoffs presented by Audi.
As discussed by the postcast. Now, I don't know. Like, they've got 4 more games to sort of, they don't have to convince me at all. Right. But, like, I think they gotta show something over the next 4 weeks or the next 4 games for me to feel really confident going into the playoffs. I think they got it in them, but like, it's got to start. It's time for the rubber to meet the road. So vibes uncertain is how I would say this. Yeah. Just looking at how the table is shaking out, and there's still plenty of room for this to be shaken up, but it sure looks like we'd be playing one of Orlando City, Charlotte, or New York City FC. And what makes that fun is we will play 2 of those teams down this stretch here. So, yeah, it'll be very interesting. And then Philadelphia, who are on a bit of a tear right now, have snuck into the play-in game spot, are tied with Toronto on the play-in game spot, 5 points behind NYCFC. There's a decent chance that Philly plays their way into playing us in the first round. So we could be looking at
You know what you don't want to hear about Philly? Philly, number 3 in the Eastern Conference in goal scoring. They've scored more goals than FC Cincinnati.
They have scored 1 fewer goal than the Columbus Crew. Wow. Yeah. Who have the best goal difference in the league. Or in the league? Probably. Definitely in the East. Okay.
Definitely all in the league, yeah. No, the East is overloaded this year. Like way, way, way overloaded.
Yeah. Man. Oh, okay. So this
moment of truth.
This is the moment. Chief, we got to predict it. Okay, so I want you to give me a prediction for the score, but I also want you to predict the striker pairing.
It's going to be Kelsey and Joe Keeney.
Okay, so that's your prediction.
It's going to be 2-2 draw. Another 2-2 draw.
I think that's good. Before I give mine, I will say Grayson texted us to say 4-2 LAFC. So just classic Grayson being an absolute pessimist.
Yeah, not here to answer for his bullshit negativity as usual.
And I will say 2-1. And Dominic Kinnear, for some reason, decided to download a new podcast for relaxing this week. Heard the Chief talk about Kelsey and Kubo, and that is who we're starting up top. They've been convinced. The coaching staff has heard the Chief.
Double-digit goals. You can't keep it on the bench, fellas. It's got to be playing. They got to be playing. He's the hot hand. He is, he is the girl next door of strikers. You know what? Stop looking for love elsewhere.
In the last game, Kubo did literally let down his hair for a second to readjust. He really did have like the nerdy girl in the classic teen movie having her glow up moment.
And you'll remember what I yelled at the TV when he did that. Keep it down. Let it flow, Yuya.
Replaces his glasses with contacts.
Yeah.
And we are
glow
off
up.
to the races.
Just a total glow up. Gonna be prom queen.
I think prom queen means golden boot winner, or at least leader on this team. We'll see if he takes it on the lead.
If he scores 2 a game, he's still going to be one behind Christian Benteke. But at least he'd make him nervous. We
need a couple of Bowl-powered hat tricks to finish the year. All right. Well, Chief, I think that's a preview. I think that's a pod.
That's a pod. See everybody, hopefully, at Streetside on Saturday for Jim Trace and the Makers, and then down to TQL Stadium. Until then, go fuck yourself, San Diego.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Cincy Postcast. It is a production of The Post Cincy. You can check us out at thepostcincy.com or just click a link in the description to check out some of our written work. It also has links to our social media accounts across all sorts of different platforms, including YouTube, where we are trying to do more and more video content. Please, dare I say it, like and subscribe and leave a comment. But no, that would be really, really helpful. I also want to give a thank you to Jim Trace and the Makers. They're a local Cincinnati band who provided all of the music for this episode. We love having them on board. You can check them out. Again, link in the description of this episode to find out where they might be playing shows next or where you can listen to more of their music. Also want to give a massive, massive thank you to the awesome and very attractive patrons over on Patreon. It is a voluntary subscription that people take out with no real promise of anything extra that keep this show afloat. And we are so, so thankful to those of you that have decided to take that commitment. If you do like the show, or at least just want to engage with other people who have listened to the show and want to talk about FC Cincinnati, MLS, soccer, or really anything else, you can go on over to Discord. Again, link in the description. Lots of links in the description where you can find a link to the Discord. That's where we are keeping the conversation going 24/7. It feels like it's a really fun group of people in there just talking about FC Cincinnati. And like I said, just about everything else. And finally, I'll say it. If you liked this episode, and given the fact that you've made it all the way to the end, I have to assume you either like it or for some reason cannot reach the stop button. please share this episode with a friend or family member or someone who likes FC Cincinnati. The best way for us to grow is from a personal recommendation from somebody who likes it. And if that's you, please tell other people. And if you don't have any friends, feel free to give us a review on whatever your podcast platform of choice is. We'll take anything we can get. But again, a huge thank you to everybody for listening to the show. I am blown away that anybody listens to this. So again, I well and truly mean this. Thank you so much for listening.